Hey guys, today we're gonna make a video on we got here a 2017 Chevy Express van. And the problem with this one, it doesn't start. It cranks but no start. So if you guys are having this issue with your van, it cranks over but you're not getting it to start, first make sure you want to check a couple things to see what's causing it. And what I'm gonna show you guys today is if you're not getting fuel coming to the engine and your fuel pump's not kicking on. And the way you guys want to do that is here, let me show you first what happens when we crank it. So yeah, you can see it's cranking, trying to start, but it just ain't firing up. So then what we want to do is to rule out everything else, because when it cranks like that and doesn't start, could be fuel, could be spark, could be timing, could be a lot of things. So what you want to do to make sure that it is the fuel pump is come over here in the engine bay and find yourself a spot in the intake tube. I found this spot right here. Just push that back a little bit. You get some starting fluid, or in this case I got a can of brake cleaner, which does the same thing, and you're gonna spray that in there, and that's pretty much gonna act like gas. And then we'll go back in and try to start it. So if it does start in this case, then we know it's a fuel related issue. We're not getting fuel to the engine. So let's try it now. So you see that? So we were able to get it run for a couple seconds there. So we sprayed whatever you spray in, the starting fluid or brake cleaner. And if you get it to start that way, that means that we got a fuel related issue and we're not getting fuel coming into the engine over there. If you did want to get technical about it, you can go to the fuel rail and hook up your fuel gauge to it and see if you got enough pressure coming out of there. Well, that's more work than it's worth, because we kind of figured it out this way already, take a shortcut to it. So we know for sure we're not getting fuel going to the engine. So now what we want to do is we want to see, and we've kind of done a lot of this diagnostics beforehand before we did the video, make this a little bit shorter so you guys don't have to sit there for hours trying to figure out what the problem is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hook up our power probe to the battery, and we're going to test a couple things out. So yeah, if you guys don't have one of these, great tool and fairly inexpensive. If you like working on your own vehicle or do this for a living, definitely got to have it. So yeah, this one will be able to tell us if we got power, if we got ground coming into the wires. We could also apply power and apply ground to something if we need to. It helps test a lot of things, and we could even get if we have access to the connector for the fuel pump, we could actually hook up power and ground to it directly with this to see if it kicks on. But that one's above the fuel tank, hard to get to. So what we're going to do now is we went through a wire schematic. We're going to put this up in the air. First we're going to turn the key on. We'll need the key on for this one. Okay, so we got all the lights flashing, we got the key on. Now let's put this up in the air. So now what you guys want to do, and we already did our research and got the wiring diagram and whatnot, and back here pretty much this is where the front door is. This is the fuel door. Pretty much right underneath the fuel door you got the control module for the fuel pump. And this is pretty much where it gets the power and ground from the engine, from the computer, and then from that it distributes onto the fuel pump. So if this module is messed up, we're not gonna have a working fuel pump anyways. So before we get to the module, what we're gonna do is we're gonna test to see if we got power and ground coming to this module from the chassis. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect the connector here, and then we've already done the hard work figuring out which is which. And you see here we got this red, and focus this camera here. Okay, so you see there's a red and a white wire, and there's a black wire right there. And if you go to the other side, that would be these first two here. So what we want to do is we want to check to make sure that we got ground and power going to those right there. Alright, so we got the key on upstairs, and now we got the power probe, so we're going to check these two here, make sure we got power and ground. So you can see right here, it's putting out 12.12 volts, and this is the plus sign is lighting up, and that's for power. So we got power, and this is black one here, that's going to be our ground. And it's supposed to beep like that. And you see we don't have any ground. So that's going to be our issue right there. If we're not getting any ground going to this module, then we're not going to be able to power up anything for the fuel pump. So now we got to figure out where our ground issue is. And if we follow this wire back this way, comes over here. You see we got a ground connection right there. So let's take a look at that one and see if we've got any ground over there. So take your power probe or your other tool if you're using a different tool and check here. So our chassis should have ground right there. And you can see our chassis doesn't have any ground, so we're getting the same measurements we're getting at the module back there. It should beep like that. But yeah, there's no ground coming in from the chassis going onto this ground that goes to the wiring. So our next ground to check, and this one we already cleaned it up to make sure that wasn't the issue. You guys can see here we kind of grinded that down a little bit and made sure we had a good contact. So now let's go on to the next spot. And this is going to be our main ground wire that goes from the battery that goes to the engine and to the chassis. Let me make sure you guys can see that. And this is where it is. We found the broken wire, or the broken ground, that goes right there underneath the AC compressor, bolts onto the engine, and then it goes all the way up on top of the battery. And this section bolts on right on top of the chassis over here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to hook that up to one spot over here and see if we can get that one to fire up. And then if we do get it to fire up, we got to make a new ground or we got to buy a ground. So let's take a look and see what we can do here to attach. So yeah, I'm just going to attach this onto something over here for the time being, just to test it out. clean this out a little bit, get over. So let's test this just to make sure that we got ground to it. So yeah, you see, that's gonna be our main ground to ground the chassis. It comes from the battery. So if we don't have ground to the chassis, we're not gonna be able to ground the computer back there that controls the fuel pump. So let's connect this over here. And this is going to be our temporary ground to make sure to see if it's going to work or not. And then if this works, then we found our problem. We could pat ourselves on the back. Alright, so before we bolt that on, let's check to make sure that one's got ground now. Okay, so it's transferring over from the ground wire to the eyelid. So now we're just gonna bolt that onto the chassis there somewhere just to test it out. And then we gotta find ourselves the actual ground wire piece, which that one looks like a pain in the ass. Because where it bolts on over here, it's behind that compressor bracket. That's that bolt for it, right in there, but it's right behind that bracket. And that looks like a job in itself. So we found the issue, but it looks like the issue isn't going to end here. You guys can hear it. Even when we connect this, you could hear our key going on upstairs. So first we're gonna grind that down a little bit. Make sure we get a smooth contact on the chassis. Alright, let's try this one. It's a little bit bigger. Alright, that's in there nice and tight. Let's check, make sure we got ground. Got ground there, like the chassis got ground here. So let's check our previous ground spot that we didn't have ground there before, which is this one right here. see we got ground on the chassis, we got ground on this eyelid. So now, the $1,000,000 question is, do we got ground over here now? And if we got ground here, then everything should get back to work. So let's check this one. Look at that. So the minus part on the power probe is lighting up green. That means we got ground. And we still got power. So let's hook everything back up. And before I do that, I'm gonna jump up here and turn off the ignition. Alright, now that we got the ignition shut off, let's connect this connector back to the module here. Pull this tab this way, get our lock into place. Alright, now let's bring the car down and test this sucker out. Alright, so we got the car down. We could disconnect our power probe, put that to the side. Make sure you guys get this boot back into place. In order for it to run, we can't have any air leaking past the mass airflow sensor here. And this should be tight enough to see if it starts or not. So now let's go in, and this is it. Let's see if that was the issue or not. Look at that. She's back up and running. Let's try it again just to make sure. Yep. Running like a beauty. So yeah, for one little ground, you guys could be chasing your tail all day trying to figure out the problem. So yeah, if you guys got a Chevy Express van and you guys are having fuel related issues, so yeah, test it out, make sure that you guys aren't getting fuel to make sure that's the problem first, because if it ain't the fuel issue, then this ground isn't going to help you much. But if you aren't getting fuel to the car, then check out the grounds before you do anything else. You don't want to change out the pump or anything else like that. Get straight to the point, and hopefully this video helps you guys out. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.